Good evening and welcome to our panel discussion. My name is Jenna D. Beasley and I'm a senior organizational communications major. Tonight our topic will be on teenage curfews. To my left we have the affirmative side. This consists of the panelists Corey Sims, which is a junior public relations major from Valdosta, Georgia. The second panelist is Thomas Thayer, which is a senior organizational communications major from Moultrie, Georgia. To my right we have the negative side. The panelists consist of Michael Barker, a senior organizational communications major from Duluth, Georgia. And his second panelist is Shep Dunn, a senior public relations major from Fitzgerald, Georgia. Tonight, the first thing we will be doing is to state each side's position to the topic of teenage curfews. The first people to state their position will be the affirmative side.
A survey was conducted last year by the United States Conference of Mayors that indicated that 70% of our cities currently have a youth curfew in place, and there's 6% actively considering one at the time. We feel as if these curfews reduce crime and also gives parents an extra tool to keep their children safe. And we feel as if the youth who are off the street at night are less likely to be victims of crime.
And now we will have the negative side state their position.
Jenna D., we're against teen curfews. We're of the same mindset as Emmett Sullivan, who is a district judge in Washington, D.C., and who just overturned the teen curfew law because he felt that it was a violation of their constitutional rights of freedom of movement, as well as the parents to exercise their parental discretion. I think that teen curfews is like putting a bull in a china shop of values. I think that kids at a young age are very vulnerable and they want to rebel, and anytime their rights are violated, I think they will rebel. So I don't think it's a cure-all. I think it's a problem in the making.
Okay, tonight we'll be discussing three main top points of teen curfews. The first will be the constitutional rights of teenagers. The second will be the crime rate with teenage curfews. And the third, we will look at the responsibility. Is it for the parents or for the cops' responsibility? First, we will ask the negative side, what are your opinions on teenage curfews and their constitutional rights?
Well, we feel that this is a violation of the youth civil rights, and this is taking away what our nation is all about, the backbone of our nation, which is freedom. We feel that this is infringing upon their freedom.
Expert Carl Racine, which is a legal expert, says one reason so many curfews laws have been put into place is that fair or not civil rights for minors simply are not guaranteed by the U.S. Constitution.
We also acknowledge that certain civil rights are being infringed on as far as teenagers are concerned, but I think we need to intervene anytime we think that the livelihood is at stake. An example that we need that we went into schools and searching the kids' lockers without search warrants and everything because there was drugs in the schools. Same things on the streets. We feel as if we go out and tell them that they need to be in at a certain time, it'll take the crime away as far as the teenage aspect, and the law officers can take that time and chase criminals that are like murderers and on homicides and whatnot.
Well, Thomas, how do you expect the officers to go out and catch the real crooks when they're babysitting our youth, which is a job of our parents? I think at some point we have to put the human equation into effect where each and every one of us are individuals, and I don't think we should be restrained or governed by state. I think that family values are brought upon by parenting, and I think that in growing up, you must learn to abide by your parents, and some sort of fear should be in the parental aspect instead of being governed by the state, like I said, because with state laws, there will be rebellion.
Yeah, there is a sense of rebellion, but that's the general idea as far as implementing the curfews, getting the community involved and getting the parents involved, collectively working together. You could come to an idea where the kids will be at home and the cops will not have to be chasing these teenagers, and then the crime rate will go down as well in both aspects, teenagers and adults.
What about the rights of the teenagers who like want to go to the show at night or playing basketball at night, you know, and
Geoff, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we're
Oh,
going
I'm
to take a
sorry.
break, and we'll come back and talk about the teenage curfews and their constitutional rights.
Billy wants to work on airplanes someday, maybe one that you fly in. Now, would you like to call for this free booklet of simple ways to improve his education?
Welcome back. We were just talking with the negative side about the constitutional rights of teenage curfews. Mr. Dunn, would you like to carry on what you were saying?
I would like to say that my nocturnal adventures as a youth has made me the man I am today. I feel that growing up and cutting up on the streets a little bit is all part about, you know, being streetwise and being a man. And I think that, you know, when you take away or regulate a kid's freedom, it causes for that kid not to grow to his full potential as a well-rounded citizen of the United States of America.
Okay. Now we'd like to ask y'all, what are your views on the crime rates dealing with teenage curfews? The affirmative side.
Research shows that crime has increased. I mean, it's like overwhelming over the past decade, and the reason why there's a lot of places there's like 150 out of 200 big cities already have teen curfews because of the crime rate. Crime rate was so high, drug and gangs, etc., and it's shown a decrease in those cities since there has been a teen curfew.
We found that according to a report issued last year by the National Center for Juvenile Justice, that teens are more likely to get in trouble from the time span of 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. So we feel that, in a sense, that maybe we should be focusing on in the afternoons instead of focusing on a teen curfew at night, when evidently most of the crime is happening during the light hours.
Well, that's an interesting fact there, but main thing we're looking at is at the bigger picture, where we're just concerned about the kids and safety. And we think that even though there might be crime in the afternoon, we feel as if we can get these kids in at night and at home maybe help out their education. We're really concerned about them, and we just want it'll help the crime rate and also the safety.
If I was a mother, I would not want my 18-year-old or younger out on the streets at that time of night. What is there out there to do besides get in trouble? I mean, we've all been there. We know that at night you're out there doing the crazy things that you were talking about earlier that make you a man or put you in jail.
Well, Corey, I'm sorry, but I think to each is their own, and I think that this is too much of a problem-solution scenario. It's like you have drunk drivers, so what do? Do you take, at a certain time of night, take all the drivers off the road? I think that a law should not be so general, and it's too vague. It's that there's some good kids out there that are doing good things at night. Like, what about the kids that have to work late at night and they're walking down the street?
Excuses
there
for
are
that.
certain provisions within
have-
these curfews. These cops are not pulling over these kids just to harass them, which there are certain instances where the cops harass everybody.
Well, do the kids deserve this? I mean, do they deserve to have an invasion of privacy? Or even on the flip side, what about the kids that are over in the poor or the minorities? Those kids, you know, are out and about because they have more problems at home, you know, than they do on the street. And then you have your country club kids who the cops never patrol.
But we're moving into a society in which we all acknowledge that it's really bad out there at night. And so we're just trying to...
We're going to take some questions now from the audience.
Hi, I'm neither for or against curfews, set curfews as far as cities are concerned, but I do think it is the parents' decision on whether their kids should come in at a certain time or not. Don't you think that kids who are in before 11 are going to do the same things as those who have to be in after 11? If a kid's going to get in trouble, he's going to do it either way, regardless of the time. Do you agree or disagree?
Well, you can look at that both in different ways, but later in the night, I mean, it would just be a better thing for them to be in early so we don't take that risk of them being out there all night long doing drugs, being victims of crime, just anything that has to do with the crime. It it would lower the risk if they were in earlier.
And are we to punish the law-abiding teens who've done nothing wrong and put them on house arrest just because of a few bad apples?
And let me add this, though. Another thing, as far as a lot of these kids in gangs nowadays, there's a lot of parents out there really that doesn't watch after their kids. And this is specifically the curfews help these kids because it gets them off the street and in the homes where they need to be at night and away from the gangs and related incidences that relate to crime.
Okay, well this evening we have looked at several different aspects of teen curfews. One, we talked about the constitutional rights of teenagers and the crime rate dealing with teen curfews. We hope you've gotten a little more information on the pros and cons of teen curfews. That's it. Thank you.
There's an awesome power that can eliminate over half of our nation's defense forces. It's everywhere, and it can strike at any time. Who has this incredible power? You do. If you employ National Guard and Reserve members, you need to use your power wisely, because today, the Guard and Reserve make up over half of our country's defense. So when they need time off to serve, be a hero. Give them the freedom to protect ours.
Good evening, and welcome back to Point Counterpoint. My name is Ryan Waldrop, and with me tonight is Orlando Michael, a senior organizational communication major, Rhonda Wright, senior public relations student, Emily Davis, senior organizational communications student, senior, and Mary Kay Levering, a senior in general studies. We are here to discuss the pros and cons of the new graduated licensing system for the state of Georgia. After July 1st, 1997, anyone who is 16 years of age but is less than 18 years of age and does not already possess the standard Class C driver's license may apply for a Class D driver's license. The holder of a Class C driver's license can operate a car under the following conditions. The Class D license holder shall not drive on public roads in the state of Georgia between the hours of 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. unless they are leaving a job, religious activity, school-sponsored activity, or in the case of an emergency. The Class D driver's license shall not drive with 3 or more passengers in the car who are not members of the driver's immediate family and who are less than 21 years of age. To be eligible for a Class C driver's license, anyone who is at least 18 years of age may apply, as long as they have held a Class D driver's license for at least 1 year. A Class D license may be revoked for the following reasons: dropping out of school, having missed 10 or more consecutive days of school in one semester or a combination of 2 quarters, has been suspended of school because of violent behavior towards a teacher or other school personnel, possession or sale of drugs on school property, or possession or use of a deadly weapon on school property. Orlando, what do you believe are the justifications behind this law?
Well, actually, Ryan, there are no justifications behind this law. We completely believe that this law is uncalled for, and it is disadvantageous to the teenagers in today's society. Actually, one statistical data that we found to support our claim is the 1994 Summary of Motor Vehicle Traffic Accidents by the Georgia Department of Public Safety. Now, this statistic states that 16-year-olds are amongst the least to be involved in accidents, to be drivers. They total 14,638. 17-year-olds are amongst the second least. They total 15,261. Actually, the most people getting into accidents are individuals between 25 to 34 years of age. So there's no factual data supporting the claim that 16 to 17-year-olds are irresponsible drivers. So this law does not justify the real reason for it.
Orlando, we have statistics from the Georgia Highway Patrol that is the 1995 data, which is a lot more current than the data that you have. And those statistics state that the kids between the ages of 16 and 17 are having more fatalities than the figures that you have suggest.
We've run across that statistic, and what we've found in that statistic is that that is true, but they are injured, they might be passengers. It does not state that these were drivers of these cars. So the law is taking away from these teenagers, and it doesn't say that if they're the drivers or the passengers in these cars. They might have been passengers who were injured.
Well, it's not really taking away from their right to drive. It's just giving them specific hours in which they should drive. No teenager should be out at the age of 16 after 1 o'clock in the morning anyway, unless they're in a controlled environment.
Well, I believe that's where the parents come in. Now, the parents are responsible for getting in their teenagers by that time. I don't think the government is responsible for doing the parents' job.
Well, Orlando, if you'll look at what we're looking at, the kids are not supposed to be on the highway between 1 o'clock and 5 o'clock. That's in the morning, except for situations like if they have a job, if they're going to a religious organizational meeting, if there's a school-sponsored situation, or if there's an emergency. So if you look at all of those situations, you haven't really done that much cutting out of driving for the teenager. It's almost as though you could justify just about anything. And when we look at the statistics that we've come up with, traffic accidents are the #1 cause of death for our youth between 15 and 20, and that's 4 times the death rates for adults. So we're looking at cutting that out, as well as saving lives of people on the road with this law. So it really does encompass a whole lot more than just
okay,
being
we'll pick
fair.
up right there after we come back from this quick break.
Afternoon, officer. It's my license and registration. Cheeseburger? It's hot out today, huh, officer? Maybe my taillight's out.
Shouldn't you be
carpooling? I guess you're right.
I guess I am.
Carpooling can save up to 600,000 gallons of gas a year. This message sponsored by Ad Council and Earthshare.
Okay, we're back. As you were saying, Mary Kay?
My comment was that so many of the teens are responsible for other lives, those lives that are on the highway as well as the lives that are in the car, and we just feel that that this is a privilege rather than anything else for the kids to be able to drive, and they need to take that responsibility and take it gradually.
Okay. What do you believe some of the short-term and long-term effects of this law may be?
Well, I feel that some of the long-term effects may be that the insurance will probably not go down like people think it will. I think the insurance, in fact, may go up, get higher, because what'll happen is the insurance companies, chances are they'll say, oh, well, we're going to do this, but, oh, this is a different cost than over here, and so I feel they're going to raise the cost. In fact, I have a quote from State Farm Insurance that Don Allen said that right now at this time there is no law stating that they have to lower the insurance rates when the restricted licensing begins.
Okay. Do you believe the state legislature considered all the parties involved when they created this law?
According to what we have studied and read from the different legislatures' publications, they have questioned the different parents, they've questioned the teenagers, and it seems to be that it's there's more for this graduating licenses than we believe, and that's why it has passed and it will become a law in July, because it did do so well with the surveys.
Well, Mary Kay, from analyzing the law very closely, I found that this law attempts to regulate teenage employment activities, religious activities, educational activities, and recreational activities. And I think that's wrong for the government to be dipping into so much teenage activities at this time. And we also reiterated the fact that the parents, they also consulted the parents about this. I had an interview with my landlady, Miss Brenda Atherley, and she said that, and I quote, "My children are responsible enough to recognize right from wrong. This law does not allow our children to benefit of the doubt. That is, being responsible, careful drivers." And I think that's the gist of this entire law here. It does not give our children the benefit of the doubt.
Well, if you really study what they've done, they haven't taken that many rights away. You still have a learner's permit at 15, then you're still able to drive on your own at 16. You just have to earn the privilege of getting that full licensing at 18, and all you have to do is just keep a clean record and stay out of trouble, and you do earn the rights to have a full driver's license, but you still have an awful lot of privileges in your driving, and I think that's something important for everybody to look at.
According to one of the high-ranking officials at Post 31 of the Georgia Highway Patrol, it was suggested that most of the drivers that are having severe problems between the ages of 16 and 18, these accidents are occurring after 1 o'clock in the morning. Again, these laws will be enforced. They are not taking away the child's right to drive, but they are making them earn the right. Before, it has been just something that was given. Now they have to earn that right by doing certain things that Ryan mentioned earlier, such as, staying in school, making sure that they are in school. You have so many dropouts. This will ensure that they stay in school if they want to drive.
But don't you feel that maybe the teenagers will say, this is punishment, this isn't fair, we haven't done anything, what about us? That was, the ones before us, that's not us.
Well, I think the reason they came up with this is the survey spoke for themselves. With so many traffic accidents and so many teenagers be involved in it, it's as though the survey spoke not. In other words, someone just didn't decide that they wanted to change the law. There were so many deaths and so many accidents among this age group that they started to think, how can we change this? How can we make it better so that it does have this number decline? And I think that's how they came up with this decision.
Georgia is one of about 36 other states that already have this law. And according to the Advocates for Highway, Auto, and Safety, they said that 15 to 20-year-olds have accidents at a rate 4 to 5 times higher than other individuals. So, it's just a given. And according to the Highway Patrol, the local Highway Patrol, there are just more fatal accidents happening late at night.
Okay, now we'll take a couple of questions from our audience.
I have a comment. I was wondering, if you're going to be discriminating against teenagers, shouldn't you take a look at the elderly? Because I'm sure if you check your statistics, there's a lot of accidents that are caused by the senior citizens.
Okay, you want to tackle that one?
Well, personally, I agree with that. I think the age range has no significance when it comes to accidents. Accidents range from 15-year-olds to 70-something-year-olds, so it really doesn't matter the age. The survey shows, actually, our survey shows that the most accidents occur, again, between individuals 25 to 34 years of age.
Okay, last question.
I kind of look at it as parents are trying to get out of their parenting roles. All I hear is about government this, government that. When are we going to start holding parents accountable for their children's actions?
I agree. I feel that parents need to take a role in their children's lives, and they need to be there for their children, and they need to set these guidelines, and that if they have the relationship with their children that they should have, that their children will perform as desired, and the government does not have to be in this position.
In an ideal world, that is very true, Rhonda, but let's face it, we're not living in an ideal world or an ideal society. So many of the parents are not taking on their roles. We have a lot of children having children, and they're not able to make the proper decisions. So someone in an authoritative position need to take on that role and help to get our children back in line and off the roads by 1 a.m.
Okay. Thank you. We appreciate it. You have a good evening.
They've given our generation a label. X. Generation Nothing. They say we have no sense of purpose. They say we have no war to fight and no cause to believe in. Who are they? Join the thousands of us who are making a difference and wear a label that does mean something.
Good evening and welcome to Point and Counterpoint. My name is Heather Hall and I will be your moderator for tonight's discussion. Our topic is whether public high schools should mandate their students to wear uniforms or not. On the pro side, we have Shane Wiggum, a senior public relations major from Cummings, Georgia. Shane feels that by requiring high school students to wear uniforms, more attention could be focused on learning. Carol Warren is also in favor of wearing uniforms. She is a senior public relations major from Moultrie, Georgia. She feels that uniforms should be required because it will decrease violence in the school system. On the other side, we have Pat Hill, a senior public relations major from Tifton, Georgia. He feels that by requiring high school students to wear uniforms, it is too radical of a change for students to adopt. His teammate is also a senior public relations major. Amy Archer is from Macon, and she feels that wearing uniforms takes away a student's individuality. We will now open our discussion with Shane.
Well, thank you, Heather. To start off with, I'd like to just basically give you a brief overview of how I feel about uniforms in public schools. And basically, uniforms are going to do three things. Uniforms in public schools are going to promote equality among students. It's going to create a better learning atmosphere and overall eliminate school violence.
My big argument against school uniforms, Shane, is that it takes away from the individuality of a certain person. A student wants to get up in the morning and pick out what they want to wear to school, and within reason, I say adopt a stricter dress code, but don't go to uniforms.
That's a good point, Pat. But the one thing to remember here is that when you come to school, you're there to learn, you know? I mean, we've all heard school's not a fashion show. If you want to be individual, you can do it every day after 3 p.m. and on weekends. But while you're at school, you're really there to learn.
I agree with that, Shane, but I don't think that adopting a uniform standard would more or less be more conducive to the learning environment. I think that if a student gets up in the morning and dresses themselves, they feel more like they're having more input in their own lives. They're not being told what to do, when to do it. They're going to go to school, and I think the learning environment will be more conducive for learning if a student feels like they have more input in their own life.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
On the other side of learning, which is a very important factor with this, another side is the safety of our children. And we have found by research that uniforms have helped out tremendously with the schools around the country on keeping children safe in the gangs or, you know, just whatever, like you said, you want your child to be able to wear whatever he wants to school, but then on the other hand, you don't want your child being injured or possibly killed for a pair of tennis shoes that maybe he has on that someone else wants. That's
right. With the use of uniforms in public high schools, there's a sense of equalness among the students because everyone basically has the same thing on. No one's looking at that, you know, a student going, golly, look how much money he's got. I mean, he's got some really nice clothes on. Or on the other end of the spectrum, looking at someone that may come from a house on welfare, you know, they're wearing rags to school. This would give a scapegoat to both of these people.
I feel that uniforms should not be enforced because how do you know that the people who are in the gangs and are promoting the violence anyway, what makes you think they're going to go by the dress code or the uniform code anyhow? Because they're going to rebel no matter what. I mean, I don't think just because you say you've got to wear this uniform, those are the kids that they're not going to care what you say anyway. So it's not going to cut down on violence and it's not going to cut down on, you know, the learning. I think the children that are there to learn are going to learn regardless of what somebody has on next to them or regardless of what they're wearing. People who are there to learn are going to learn regardless.
I think I'll agree with Amy there because I think that'll increase the dropout rate in a lot of inner city schools. If you require someone to wear a uniform, they don't like it, they've got to come to school with the uniform on, they're not going to wear it.
I'm sorry to interrupt. We need to go to a break. We'll be right back.
Math, a four-letter word, right? Hey, you don't need that. Why design the world's newest chips? When you could be flipping the world's oldest burgers. Hey, wait a minute. This is math. Geometry, algebra. No pocket protectors here. But you're cruising without math. Yeah, right. Take a good look. That's math staring back at you. It's not a problem, man. It's an answer. Call NACME. We'll tell you what you need to do.
We're back, and I believe, Pat, you were saying something?
I was speaking of the dropout rate increasing possibly if you did require uniforms in inner city schools. And also, Shane mentioned a great point a while ago about children coming from poor homes and not having money to maybe keep up with the Jones, as the old saying goes, and not have the money to wear, you know, the nicer clothes that, you know, the other children may be wearing. What about them being required to pay for their own uniform?
Well, that's where the government would actually step in to help fund programs like that. School, in most cases, would pick up the bill on that, so something like that could be obtained. You spoke about the dropout rate, and that is one statistic that, you know, we're not clear on because we're not sure how many students will drop out. But speaking of statistics, statistics show that 36%, in Long Beach, which was the first public school to require uniforms, there was a 36% drop in crime and a 74% drop in sexual offenses. And students brought fewer weapons to school.
I don't feel like the dropout that brought you to school should have anything, does have anything to do with the dropout rate. I think the people that end up dropping out have much greater problems than what they wear to school. They have a bad family life and they're brought up in a one-family home, one-parent home. I don't feel like that clothes are the reason people drop out of school.
Well, it is working because there's several schools in the country that have adopted this, and it is working. Long Beach being the first one, and it has had increased attendance, increased test scores, and this was all found in the National Association of Secondary School Principals.
But if you look at Long Beach, California, it's not exactly your Detroit inner city high school. It's a little more upper class, and the children are more conducive to coming to school and learning because it's instilled at home. It's the family values that are instilled at home. I think if you adopt a stricter dress code, it's going to get the parents involved more with the children. They know that their children will be punished for not wearing a certain thing to school or for wearing a certain thing to school. And the parents will be more involved in the studies, maybe, and also in what the children wear to school, and that leads to greater home life.
Kara, do you feel that we may ever have to wear uniforms in public schools around South Georgia? Do you feel, based on your research?
Well, I feel like that when a school's deciding to adopt this, they need to, you know, every school's different, and they need to check it for themselves, you know, look into this and see if this is going to be good for them or, you know, for the families, all of that. I do think that, you know, even in South Georgia, even though it's not an inner city, which a lot of them have been, I think that there has been some problems with racism and discrimination that needs to be looked at and taken into consideration.
Especially with the issue right now concerning the Georgia flag. I know in the high school where I went to, we did have some problems with racism because of the outfits worn.
Exactly.
So how do you feel about this?
I think if you're going to adopt a plan, you can't start it in a high school. You've got to start it in the K through the 4th grade level. You have to start the children out at an early age, tell them they've got to wear the uniform or what they've got to do, or you've got to adopt a dress code, which I'm for and in favor of, is adopting a dress code. You've got to enforce that year after year. Your dress code can't change from middle school to elementary school to high school, whatever. You've got to be strict in whatever you set in your standards.
That's a good point.
Right, I realize that, and a dress code is good, but the dress code just is not working out. That's why we're having to go to the next step, which is uniforms. I mean, it's hard for us to realize most of us around here went to schools that weren't really in that bad of shape, so to speak. And so with uniforms, another plus to it is with everyone wearing the same uniforms, administrative people can quickly recognize intruders that don't need to be on the campus, whether it's selling drugs or taking part in other activities.
That's a good point. Just like anything, anybody can get whatever they want. If somebody wants on a school campus bad enough, they can get a certain tie or a certain blazer or a certain pair of pants and be on school. They can borrow somebody's that's not there. If anybody wants anything bad enough, they can get it.
That's true, but this is just one more step. This is a little more trouble that they're going to have to go through, and that's going to knock a small percentage out. And if it's a small percentage, it's a start.
Getting back to what Kara said about the studies done with higher GPAs and more discipline, I also read a study done by clinical psychologist Dr. Tom Rogers. He conducted the study over 2 to 3 years and proved that it does not increase GPA. It does, however, increase discipline in some instances, but later in life they can even have more difficulty than people who went to a non-uniform school.
That's good. Let's see if our audience may have some questions for our panelists concerning uniform. Do we have any questions?
Yes. Don't you feel that the money would be better used if it would go toward education and then rather than appearance?
Yes, I do.
Yes, I do. I feel that the people who are going to wear the uniforms are going to be there for the people who would wear the uniforms abide by the rule are there for the education anyhow.
Well, the uniforms is going towards education. Through the uniforms, better education can be accomplished.
But as in Long Beach School, how they did it also, they had community groups and businesses and individuals giving money to profit the uniforms. Also, it wasn't just governmental.
Right, it's not coming out of the taxpayer's pocket.
But then again, also, Long Beach is a little more affluent community.
Well, that is correct, but when we're studying the whole issue of uniforms, we can't just focus on South Georgia. We've got to look at the entire United States.
I agree fully, but I don't think that you'll have the same cooperation in an inner city, such as Los Angeles, Detroit, Chicago, places like that, that you will in more affluent communities. I think that if you set the standard in a South Georgia town, the people will go for it, and the businesses and the corporations will fall in behind it. But until you do your research, and I'm not saying that y'all haven't done research, because I know you have. I know how y'all have your background, how to study the background on your topic. But you've got to make sure that it'll fly in the community before you approve it.
Okay, well, we hope you have enjoyed our topic discussion tonight. We hope we've provided a little insight on both sides of the coin. Once again, our topic was whether or not public high schools should enforce their students to wear uniforms. We thank you and good night.
We want to see our children succeed. But setting easy goals for our kids creates the toughest obstacle they'll ever face. Because succeeding in the real world isn't easy. Help the effort to raise standards in America's public schools. Call 1-800-96-PROMISE.
20 kids. For 1 hour a week, you leave your concrete world of flip phones and faxes and talk to 20 kids about how business works. They will question everything. But those 20 kids will talk to 20 more. So by Saturday, what you said on Thursday could be halfway around their world. You get to make a difference. Could just make the rest of your week pretty dull. That's the new JA, teaching kids how business works.
Jum jum, jum jum, jum jum, jum jum, jum jum, jum jum, jum jum. Jum, 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 jum.
The following is an excerpt from a previous airing of Point Counterpoint.
Good evening. I'm Julie Danforth, and I'm a Senior Public Relations major from Tifton, Georgia, and I'll be serving as moderator in tonight's discussion. Tonight's topic is cloning, miracle or menace. Our panelists are, to my right, Dana Belwar. Dana is a Junior Public Relations major from Atlanta, and Seth Thompson. Seth is a Senior Public Relations major from Valdosta. Seth and Dana's main argument will be for the continued medical research on cloning for animals. To my left is Kelly Jacobs. Kelly is a sophomore public relations major from Albany, and Chris Williams. Chris is a senior public relations major from Valdosta. Kelly and Chris's main argument will be on the ethical issues surrounding cloning. Before we begin, Dana, would you explain to us the exact process that takes place in cloning?
Yes, according to Time magazine, cloning in itself is when you remove a cell from an animal. It's only an animal in this case, because so far cloning hasn't involved anything else. But you remove the cell from an animal. Then you take the reproductive elements of another animal. In this case, it was a black-faced sheep, and you combine those two cells. Fusion takes place, and these two cells become one. Then that cell is then implanted in another sheep, a ewe in this case, and after the gestation period of about 9 months, a baby ewe is born with the same physical characteristics as the first cell that was first taken out of the original ewe. And they have the same physical traits, and that's about it.
Okay, and some more background. On February the 22nd, 1997, scientists from the Rosalind Institute near Edinburgh, Scotland, announced that they successfully cloned a ewe with DNA taken from another ewe. And this ewe was born in March of 1996. Her name is Dolly. And this struck controversy around the world. And tonight we will be discussing the medical and ethical aspects of cloning, as well as what kind of, if any, control should the government take in cloning. Kelly and Chris, I want to ask you first. Kelly, do you feel that cloning is ethical?
No, I do not feel it's ethical. I feel that it disrupts the natural process of life, and that in itself I think is unethical. Clinton banned government-funded cloning research and asked private sectors to halt research also. Obviously, there's some kind of unethical issue, and I don't believe that we should play the part of God.
Chris?
I think that we don't need to let scientists get in the way of our moral values. I think that, you know, we're not just looking for a piece of the puzzle. I think that we need to look at the big picture and see where it's going to take us. And so many times we can't see the end because we're so concerned about, you know, what we're doing now with this discovery or that discovery. It's like the philosopher John Stuart Mill, with his principle of utility, it said that the ends don't justify the means. And there's so many times that we get into things in this world and we develop things like the bombs. You know, we develop bombs for countries and hurting other countries during war. And now we have terrorists running around, you know, bombing everything, and, you know, it's out of control. And we could never foresee that at that time period. And now, I mean, there's so many ethical questions, you know, that are up front now that we can't afford to just jump out there and, you know, take some steps so we don't know where we're going.
I would have to appreciate your comments. In response to that, it's natural for humans to want to explore and to learn more. And in response to the atomic bomb, yes, you know, they got a little carried away in that, but we have to look at the facts on cloning. And the fact on cloning is we've already opened the Pandora's box, as someone I interviewed said. Dr. Barnett was talking about the Pandora's box and how when you open that, it's already out of the bag. So to speak, we have to look at the issue as it is, not as what it was. We have to look at where we are, where we stand, and coming from the ethical standpoint, ethically, we have to look at cloning as it is today, not as what we want it to be, but as it is, and as it is today, it's perfectly ethical.
Okay, thank you for your comments, and we're going to take a quick break now.
And I have watched 180 once, but I blinked, so it doesn't count. Should I say more?
180. We're not a real music video show, but we play one on television. Coming at you Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. Eastern on VSU-TV 12. That is all.
And we're back. And Seth, did you have anything you wanted to add to the ethical issue, or Dana?
I have one final comment really quick one to make is that cloning, as it is done today and as it is done now, without looking at any foreshadowing of problems that we're going to have, ethically it is sound. No laws have been broken. Nothing against any medical procedures have been disturbed. So far, scientists have been cloning bacteria and plants for generations and for years. It just then proceeded on to an animal, and now there's a sudden uproar. Even the scientists that are cloning the animals do not wish to proceed on to humans, which I know is everyone's main concern.
Right, and that is the general fear, is the focus is going to be on humans. We need to look at the fact that it's the exploration of science itself. It's the need to explore the boundaries, to find out what the dangers are, to find out where our securities lie, and to get a grip on this cloning, because there are definitely going to be benefits involved.
Okay, let me go to the next question on, you've mentioned medical benefits. What sort of medical breakthroughs could cloning research produce?
This is all speculation because the idea is so new. Some possibilities that have been mentioned out of Time magazine, one in the March issue of Time magazine, one possibility is that they could generate cells in cattle to produce leaner meat and also cattle with more meat. Another possibility is that they could produce organs in pigs or in hogs that can be used for transplants in humans. The more organs that we have, the shorter the waiting list will be for those who need organs and need hearts. So that's just one benefit of the cloning process that can benefit humans without having to clone humans. Cloning humans is not in the picture.
How do you guys feel about this?
That's a good point, but in today's society, we have computers that can monitor, what an animal, what its reaction will be to certain drugs without having to clone more animals for the same thing. We can, with a computer today, they can take it and show the whole outcome, and it'll represent what a human's reaction would be. So, we have more discoveries today through science than we have ever had, and how do you think that cloning is going to enhance that?
Well, we have to look at the fact that when you're coming from taking an organ from an animal and replacing it in an organ with a human, you want it to be an organ that is reliable. And in cloning, we can take the recessive gene, or the gene that is causing the problems, the defects, and remove it and replace it with the gene that will support that organ and will make it more valuable. It will make it more efficient. So, in effect, cloning will help restructure those organs so it fits in the human body better and it works better.
Kelly, I want to get a comment from Kelly. Do you have any?
I just feel, based on Dana's definition of cloning itself, that this takes away from the whole concept of the family and what a family should represent, with a mother and father and child having their own individuality. Cloning occurs naturally in some instances, for example, multiple births, but I believe that we should let nature take its course and that we should not interfere with nature.
Okay, I want to move to, do you feel that that the government should ban cloning altogether, should monitor cloning, or should let scientists have free running to do whatever they want to in cloning? Kelly, let's start with you.
I personally think that it should be banned.
Okay, why?
I just, the whole ethical issue is just not right for me, and I just don't believe that we should interfere with nature.
Chris?
Well, I feel that since the beginning of time, reproduction has been caused through conception, and it takes one egg and one sperm, and that's basically how Earth was designed to flow with animals or plants or humans or anything. I think that we should ban it because it creates a sense of identity with individual people, because with cloned, whether it's people, which it could get to that point because, like I said, with the principle of utility, you can't foresee the future. We hope it won't, but
I can agree with that to a point, but I think we need to look at two factors in the human spirit when it is to to evolve, to gain knowledge, and you had to look at two things: human negligence, and we're going to be negligent. But then you had to look at ignorance, and we got to do that research so we can feed ourselves with knowledge and educate ourselves in this area. I think it should be monitored to a point so that we don't become negligent, so we don't abuse our rights. But I don't believe in banning. I believe
cloning should be monitored so that it won't go to the human cloning.
We'll remove the benefits that we could receive.
Okay, thank you. It's time for our question and answer segment.
You stated earlier that they first started cloning plants, and I'm sure back then they did not perceive that you were going to clone animals. How do you know now that they won't start wanting to clone humans?
That's a good question, and you're right, we don't know. When drugs were first introduced, they were introduced as an aid in medical benefits. Opium, and marijuana even, I mean, you know, pot, it's all been used for healing processes. There was no way they could have foreseen the dangers that drugs could have caused. I mean, today, drugs, there's a huge drug problem. Right now, we are focusing on the benefits, and human cloning, scientists, let's see, even the man who cloned the sheep, Ian Wilmot, he specifically said that human cloning is not their aim. Human cloning is not the purpose. The purpose is technology. The purpose is progress and aiding humans in diseases. That's the purpose. And sure, you're going to have your quacks and your kook scientists who are going to want to be the first to clone a human, but who is going to be that one human that wants to be cloned? I mean, it's such a very, 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 very small percent of people that would really want themselves to be cloned, except for ego purposes and things like that. But you're right, it's so new, we cannot foresee that, and it is a Pandora's box in that sense.
That's right, and going back to the Pandora's box, it's out there. You've already got the concept out there. You've got the research being done. If we don't continue it, someone else will. We need to continue it to find its limits and contain it with a monitoring system, I believe, with government monitoring. What do you guys think?
Well, I would just like to add that on April 4th, 1997, 20 European countries signed the Human Rights and Biomedicine Agreement, and that agreement stated that there would not be any human embryo cloning for research done, that the rights of humans came over, any scientific research that came about.
Okay, we have another question.
Yes. What about this human is sooner or later, I don't know how soon, but the humans will be cloned. What's to stop people from abusing this or making a clone and then
government regulations.
So we're coming back to
clone factories.
Right, clone factories.
So what about this rights issue?
Right. Well, we had a lot of comment on that, and that's everybody's general fear. But we have to look at the fact that that this research has begun. We're not going to be able to stop it, and that's why, as a result, most scientists prefer to have some monitoring from the government in point of fact, so that we don't abuse it, but also so that we're not sued in the process for some kind of malpractice or for stretching our limits and coming to a point that we are abusing our scientific research.
I would just say that if it ever came to a problem where you did have human clones, that you have to worry about the problem of human rights. They have souls and spirits too. What rights are they going to have? If it does come about. So it is a scary question.
Right.
These are all problems that you can't foresee, but we don't think that you should totally get rid of the research on cloning because the benefits do outweigh the negatives so far.
Okay, I want to thank my panelists, and I want to thank the audience for their participation tonight, and thank you for a good panel discussion.
See you right through. Are you as cool as you believe? Or are you playing hide? Are you waiting just to quietly clock my kite? Are you waiting for a moment to leave? I don't know how I've been, or what you said, to what I believe you meant. I don't know anything at all. I'm standing in the push and shove, and I'm just within the rescue of a labor of your love. I can't do anything but fall, fall. Would you feel like I can never find you? Or do I feel like I'm the only survivor? Why am I thinking, oh, you and me and the labor of love? One chance, one shot, that's all anybody ever got. Newborn, still warm, naked in the rush hour, dancing in my gutter. And if you wanna find me, call me, I'll be far from the cars and guitars and everybody. Do I feel like I can never find you? Or do I feel like I'm the only survivor? Why am I thinking, oh, you and me and the labor of love?
What it was, we have to look at where we are, where we stand, and coming from the ethical standpoint, ethically, we have to look at cloning as it is today, not as what we want it to be, but as it is, and as it is today, it's perfectly ethical.
Okay, thank you for your comments, and we're going to take a quick break now.
And I have watched 180 once, but I blinked, so it doesn't count. Should I say more?
180. We're not a real music video show, but we play one on television. Coming at you Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. Eastern on VSU-TV 12. That is all.